our guest who will be joining us all the way from Borno this morning, a young man who's doing so much in advocacy and ensuring sustainability in Africa. Now, across Africa, ambitious frameworks like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we have the African Union Agenda 2063, promising prosperity, inclusion, and sustainable growth. Yet, many young people do not even know about these agendas, and it remains a distant policy document, rarely felt, of course, in their daily realities. That's the conversation we'll be having today, discussing how the awareness of this. I remember sometimes we have conversations with young people across who tell you, when you discuss the SDGs, they ask you if you're still talking about the MDGs or are you talking about the Millennium Development Goals. That document expired several years ago in 2015. And unfortunately, the SDGs, which is to expire in 2030, is right by the corner, and we do not have that kind of awareness necessary for young people to hold government accountable and deserve and demand rather implementation of this. And that is why we have our young guest this morning, a young African working to bridge that gap. Abubakar Sadiq is a youth advocate who has been actively championing Sustainable Development Goals, the African Union's Agenda 2063, with particular focus on youth inclusion, civic awareness, and grassroots engagement. Through advocacy and dialogue, this young man has been engaging with so many people across Africa, trying to ensure that they are awakened, so to speak, to what the global treaties and global pacts that countries across Africa often are quick to sign. How does it affect you and all that? So we will be joined shortly by Sadiq, who has been doing a lot in mobilization. He continues to push for young people, not just to understand these frameworks, but to own them. Today we'll examine these real challenges. Hello, Sadiq. Okay, so shortly we will join Sadiq there to give us his experience, tell us about his experience and what he's been facing. But Agenda 2023 is often described as Africa's, the Africa we want. And do young people even know what they can do in ensuring this Africa that we want? Are we united enough to ensure that this works, that governments are taking these agendas seriously? Africa has, 54 countries, and you ask yourself, how united are we to ensure this agenda work? Are we ready even for the Africa that we want? We are still recording a coup and attempted coups across, which is further, a lot of people would say it's taking us further backwards, because if you do not have a democracy that ensures human rights, do not have a democracy that holds you accountable to getting peace and social security for your citizens, what then are we talking about? Sadiq, I hear you've joined. Hello. Hi, Sadiq. Yeah, good morning. How are you? Okay, so we're still trying to connect with Sadiq right there to discuss the SDGs, the AU Agenda 2063, the implementation of the SDGs and this AU agenda, the awareness deficit among young Africans, and what must change if these global continental visions are to become lived realities. Sadiq? Okay. I see you there, but could that be network right there? This is a conversation I really was hoping to have. So we would discuss how it remains low among Africans, what young people are doing to ensure that there's constant, despite the constant references by government and institutions, we are constantly referred to the agenda, Africa, what we want, the Africa Africa that we want, the collective activities happening in that regard. How can African youth ensure sustainable development? That's the conversation we're having. And I told you earlier, my guest, Abubakar Sadiq, is a young advocate who has been actively championing not just the sustainable development, but Agenda 2063. Sadiq, welcome to the show. Hello, Sadiq, can you hear me now?
Yeah, hello. Good day. I'm so sorry. I've
I'm
been
happy
having
I
issues
can
with
even
my
hear you
network.
at this moment, but let's go straight to the conversation. For viewers who hear these terms and do not fully understand what the Sustainable Development Goals are, or the AU Agenda 2063, why should young Africans care?
All right. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you this morning. Firstly, my name is Abubakar Sadiq Ahmad. I'm widely known as SDGs Allergy, and I am a passionate advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals. And back to your question, when it comes to SDGs, as I usually say, SDGs is a global framework that combines everyone, and it's for everybody. So it needs collective effort of most especially young people to join the movement, because SDGs can't be achieved without the collaboration and support and the effort of young people. And these young people are the ones that carry the fresh perspective towards achieving the sustainable development goals. So we the young people are the major stakeholders towards achieving the sustainable development goals. So in reference, we can say for Nigeria particularly, we have over 70% of our population which are under the ages of 35. So if you can see, we make the largest portion of the population, and it's very saddened that less than 10%, you understand, of community development decisions at local levels are actively involve young people. So I think we are needed, despite our being need, despite we being essential to the movement, that we are actually left behind so much. So thank you
Much for that. You said we are often left behind. Why is that? Who should hold your hand in front, so to speak?
Okay, thank you. So you see, Nigeria, basically, we doesn't have for Nigeria, we doesn't have the problem of youth participation. So usually, I used to hear organizations talk about that there is a poor youth participation in Nigeria. So that's not our problem. Our problem in Nigeria that is we have the problem of power sharing. So that's it. Youths are being participated on things that are unnecessary. Like now, let me take example. Youths are often involved in things that related to mobilization, crowd control, social media, and other things that doesn't even add to us. But now, let's take for instance things that are vital. Some things like budgeting, policy planning, project ownership, monitoring and accountability. All these, you understand, youth are left behind. So our major problem in Nigeria, let's say, is not the problem of youth participation. You understand? It's the problem of power sharing. They don't want to share the power with us as young people. So that's why we are always making a call, always trying to find our space in the table. Thank you.
Having a conversation with our SDG Malam, Sadiq, who was discussing how young people should focus on important issues like global dialogues and pacts and all the treaties that especially African countries often agree to. But we're talking about how realistic. I was asking, could young people not be as interested because they do not see how realistic it is or how relatable these goals even are to them? Sadiq, are you there?
Yeah, so sorry. We have been having network.
Right. It's okay, I'm happy. Like you were explaining, discussing how we should rather focus on what's important. And I was asking you if you think that these young people do not believe that these goals and agendas they feel relatable to it. They have impact that they could help, because very often it addresses government, it addresses everyone. But do you think it addresses the activities of young people as well?
Yeah, sure. And I have been working directly with youth at the community level. I can say this with confidence that when young people are being trusted with responsibility, projects actually survives. I can see that, and a lot of young organizations, even you, the presenter, you can attest to that because you have been doing a lot trying to amplify your young voices, trying to represent the youth. So I believe when young people are being trusted with the responsibilities, usually projects used to survive. And when they are just being used as decoration, as it's become now a tradition in Nigeria that we youth, we are not just there to decorate programs and projects. So usually when we are being used as decoration, projects usually used to collapse after the launch banner is being removed. So this is the reality, and I can say with confidence that when young people are being trusted with responsibility,
the deadline is drawing closer, especially for the SDGs. 2030 is right upon us right here. What biggest barriers do you see when we talk about implementation? I mean, from the lens of a young person, of course.
all right. But not so much. But at least we have achieved. But we actually we need to do more because it actually baffles me a lot that when I see young people, knowing that SDGs is almost a few years to go, and in fact, even till date, as I'm talking to you now, there are a lot of young people that have never even heard of anything related to SDGs. Talk less of them to bring their own contribution. Though, honestly, the SDGs are set to be achieved by 2030, and Nigerian youth population will be large, will be even larger. So we are not at we are not even close to that achievement of SDGs by 2030. But at least when we actually move in, and we need much more effort, you understand, to bring more youth, to bring more energy, to bring more efforts for we to achieve that. But I hope that the policymakers and those in charge with the power should actually visualize that and give us more adequate resources. Because if the youth have been excluded, the gap between targets and reality will be widening. It's widening already. So we are already excluded, and now it's time for them to include us. And we need much more energy, and much more inclusion than ever. Thank you.
With young people, telling them what work they have in explaining these things to young people who may not never have heard about all these goals and agendas. What reception do you get? Do you get interested? Do you get curious? Do you get people who are willing to join this advocacy for the implementation of the SDGs and these global goals? Or do you get young people who are not interested at all to engage?
Honestly, what usually motivates me a lot for kind of responses I used to get for people that get to hear about SDGs for the first time through me. Like that excitement that used to come for them, that enthusiasm, because it actually appears like an injection, you understand, to them, like something that they have been wanting to do, but they actually never knew they can do it. And something that they think that it should be done, but they believe that it's not their responsibility. But by knowing the SDGs, they now become powered, they now become energized to actually solve that. I myself can actually relate to that because while I started my developmental work, my humanitarian work, I never knew anything like SDGs was like any. I never knew a lot about SDGs. So when I came across the SDGs, I just realized that all these things that I've been doing, the Almajiri program that I've been doing, the climate actions, all of them are under SDGs. So I now just align all my activities towards achieving them. I can see young people doing great things related to the SDGs, and at least those that now get to hear SDGs for the first time usually used to be energized, used to be excited, and used to willingly put effort and energy on towards achieving. I can say most of some of the initiatives, some of the ideas that I got is from people that have never knew SDGs, that are knowing SDGs for the first time. I could remember when I went for to a school outreach program at a school. A student now gives me a brilliant idea that we now adopt it to the project that we have been doing for a while. So if you see, we are far left behind. We are living potentials, we are living techniques, we are living power, we are living fresh perspective, we are living sustainability ideas behind. So when young people are now involved, believe me, the impact will be massive.
Young people now, but how about government? Do we have that reception when you reach out to government? I know you do a lot in conversing and your dialogues with public office holders to ensure that what they do is aligned with the SDGs. What's the reception from that end?
Yeah, thank you so much. Interests me, that amazes me is seeing the results that we usually used to get. I was like, okay, had it been I started this earlier on, had it been almost most of young people, you understand, are now doing what I'm doing. Like a lot could have been changed. Let me just cite example with the recent development we had in Adamawa State, which was initiated through me particularly. I happens to join climate change working group. Is a collation of organizations that actually used to work on climate change. So I happens to be part of the pioneers of that group, where I came up with an idea. What if the states, you understand, dedicate a day in a month for cleanup? And believe me, it's now happened. The governor signed it into law, and now it's now a law in Adamawa State that every Saturday of the month, every ending Saturday of the month, last Saturday of the month is cleanup. So, and everybody, no businesses, nothing is going to happen in the state. Nothing is going to happen in the state until after the cleaning services have elapsed. So you can see this is very huge improvement. And I could remember we were part of the people through the post-primary schools management board that influenced a policy that made it mandatory for schools in Adamawa State to have guidance and counseling. So you can see the level of impact, the level of the government are ready to do it. And when young people are ready to make the government do the work, at least we are not against government. We need to work hand in hand, because government is for the people, by the people, and to the people. So we, the people, now need to engage with the government, and we need to engage them rightly. So, and I think if I on my own can achieve these two policy implementation, I believe anyone and from any part of the country can do so.
Well, I mean, kudos to you. Now in Adamawa State, you have the monthly cleanup, which is very, very commendable right there. However, apart from the SDGs, the UN has, we now have the Pact of the Future, where it somewhat replaces the SDGs when it expires in 2030. What's the awareness like? Here is yet another pact. Here is another, basically, guidelines on how that, especially for people like you, gives you a direction as to how to push forward your planned initiatives and projects. How aware are young people about the Pact of the Future?
Um, not much because we are just starting, and even them at the UN level, I think most of the projects or the programs or things for the future are now that is actually being trying to reach us. So, and when it comes to that, we are far left behind, but we are taking steps to now incorporate it to what we are doing to adopt the framework and go with the future. So a lot I need to be done do, and the level of awareness is actually very low, very low.
Absolutely. But do you see a future where instead of young people are just relaxing and believing they are beneficiaries, they are also working towards becoming partners and creating that kind of value and capacity that is, you don't look at an African young person as, okay, this is what we should help them get. But these are partners in the course of, sustainable development.
Yeah, quite sure. Because when you can, like, let me just give example with a project by Leap Africa, which they tend to empower young people more to achieve the SDGs across Africa. And if you see the magnitude of young people that usually is involved on that project, you will be amazed. You understand? Every year we used to get thousands of increment of the total number that's actually engaged through for the past year. So at least we are now improving toward that, and young people are ready. You understand? As I said earlier, when we have been trusted with the responsibility, I trust. You understand? I believe I can say it with full commitment that we will deliver, and projects will be sustained. So it's just the problem that we are not being given the power, we are not being given the right knowledge, and we are not being given the right avenue to voice out, to show our potentials, to show our capacity.
As the right platform, as the right avenue, and how can we domesticate these agendas better in communities? Maybe translate the agendas to local communities. What would be the right platform? If you can just explain what you mean or expatiate on it.
All right, thank you so much. Each young people is through young people. So, and when you have, like, example, let me just cite example, like people like me now, I did being, I will be, there's a lot of people that actually carried these SDGs at heart. And if at all, you understand, they will get them, and they will empower them to step down that knowledge, step down that awareness, step down that the framework to young people. I think the knowledge, the message is going to go wide. So the best way to reach young people is through young people. So that's the avenue to. So I think that's the best way to actually do that. Thank you.
Okay, you said they should give you avenues. I still do not understand what you mean by avenues because I want to get my head. I want it correctly. I want to understand it better. I mean, SDG Malam, we do this a lot where we said, if only we had this and all of that. But if you have a conversation with, say, your governor right now, what would be your response in this is what you should do to ensure youth inclusiveness in implementing SDGs, AU agenda, and all these very noble agendas in our communities?
You see, the problem is mostly, you understand, we are just let our voice be added on the policy and decision making processes. I think that's what we are left behind. That's what we need currently. So now, if our voices are being added, I think it's going to go a long way. That's the avenue I'm now talking of. Now, let's take for instance. Now, SDGs allergy is now senior assistant, I mean assistant. Personal assistant to advisor to the governor on things related to SDGs or youth. So how massive will the impact I'm already making with compared to when I'm being given that privilege, you understand, to be an advisor to the governor, or I'm being given an office, you understand, to hold, to represent young people. So that's when that's what I'm talking as avenue. Now, for instance, I am SDGs allergy, and I have my own organization, and I'm doing things based on my own ability, based on my own capability. Now, let's take for instance. Now, I write a proposal for government to for a project. So, how do you compare the impact
Hello.
project?
I'm sorry, we have run out of time. We cannot take more examples, but I get where you're going with this, where there should be better dialogue and all that. Thank you so much for being part of the show and taking time out to give us your thoughts on this subject matter. Thank you. That was a young advocate right there, Sadiq, who has done a lot in youth inclusion, civic awareness, and grassroots, and pushing for the implementation, of course, of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2063. In fact, he is often referred to as the SDG Malam because of the work he's been doing, which is, of course, very interesting. But in the final analysis, as we conclude today's conversation, I would like to say it reminds us that these agendas must not remain a rhetoric. It has to bring young people around. I mean, we have the numbers, we have the energies amongst our young people in the continent. They have to be part of this conversation because we have over 60% of African population under 25. That's a very remarkable number right there. By 2050, according to report, 1 in every 3 young people globally, 1 in every 3 young people globally would be an African. This also means that the success or failure of the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063, of course, will be decided largely by what happens to young people, not just tomorrow, but today. We have to be ready for this number, the growing population in Africa. We have to bring them to the table and discuss ways we can implement this agenda and guideline that gives us a roadmap to sustainable development. And according to a UN assessment, less than 15% of SDG targets in Africa are currently on track, while progress, of course, in poverty reduction, education, health, decent work has either stalled or reversed in many countries. I remember during the MDGs, it seemed like there was this governments across the world were very excited to push forward for this initiative, but here we are. Youth unemployment, unfortunately, remains alarmingly high, and millions of educated young people are locked out of productive economic participation. That's a very, very concerning trend right there. Agenda 2063, however, also promises, of course, prosperity, inclusive growth, and good governance. But ambition alone cannot implement, and right now Africa needs implementation of these ambitious agendas. These ambitious, without youth awareness, participation, and accountability, this framework risks becoming aspirational documents rather than lived realities, unfortunately. And here is the critical point. Development does not fail because young people are unwilling. It fails when young people are excluded from planning, underfunded in execution, and ignored in decision making. And so I leave you today to say, join this trend. Let's see how we can put our heads together and get us implementing this noble pathway and framework that gives us a path to the sustainable development. It covers almost every aspect of life, really, from education to poverty reduction, to inequalities, to inclusiveness, and everything that requires us to live better and develop in the same trend. But that's it for today's edition of RASEP Africa. I am happy to discuss these very important issues, but until we come back your way next time, do have yourself a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to RASEP Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.